afternoon. Thank you guys for joining us. Today, this week will be our last deck lunch for the year, and we will start back up next year on the 11th, in which Becky will be taking over, so expect to receive an invite from her for our next one on the 11th. But today we have dev engineer Daniel Huster here to show us how to build an app using augmented reality.
How y'all doing? Good. Yes, as Becky said, I'm an engineer here at the Fed. Sarah.
And Daniel wrote this already.
All right. So a couple of weeks ago, I gave a talk about different computer realities. Who all were here for that talk? Okay, a couple of you all. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I gave a talk about computer realities, and specifically virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and kind of how those realities are currently and going to be affecting our future of reality and some of the challenges that they have. And I just thought it was would be pretty neat today to kind of show you how easy it is to step into this new world that's coming up. Because I had stated at that point that augmented reality is everywhere. You just might not know it, and it's readily accessible. And to back up that claim, I just wanted to go through how to build a very basic augmented reality app. Now, this is not going to be super technical. I talked a little bit about the techniques in it before, but it's going to be pretty accessible. So, like, if you're an individual who's really good at like just doing design, you don't really know much about the programming, you're still going to be able to do this. And then if you're someone that's great at programming, but maybe not so great at designing 3D models and stuff, you're still going to be able to do this. And I'm going to be using the tools that I'm going to be showing today will allow you to be able to do this. So the first part I want to do is quickly do a recap of what augmented reality is. The first part is that augmented reality tries to recognize images based on features such as corners and blobs, to recognize this image and at some point display user information. Like maybe it's a 3D model, maybe it's just an overlay. And right here, you're going to see like this image this jack of spades has a lot of like yellow crosses on it. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying features, corners. This is how the computer visually sees and recognizes these images. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about this as I get into the examples today. But I thought it would be a good visual representation of what I'm talking about when I say features, such as corners and blobs. These things are distinct parts of this image that the libraries that you use kind of recognizes, okay, this is what this image is. It also uses, when it finally finds that image, it'll track these images using optical flow, and all that is there to say is that it makes it easier for it to display the image in the right context and not be as jerky. Those things have been improving over time, and they're going to continue to improve. What augmented reality is it's not virtual reality. A lot of times when people start to talk about like augmented reality, mixed reality, people tend to like just lump them all together with virtual reality. That's not the case. This is a very, very different piece. Where virtual reality tries to take you as a user and kind of give you, put you within a virtual world that makes that very immersive. Augmented reality is taking these graphics and trying to anchor them, I think is the best way to put it, in our world. It's also not a holodeck. For those that have watched Star Trek and know about the holodeck, it's not quite there yet. And augmented reality is not going to be that. Mixed reality is trying to be that. I talked in the previous talk that I believe that's where augmented reality is just evolving into. But for today's demonstration, it's not going to be displaying models within a 3D world. It's going to be anchoring into images, and that's the real difference between mixed reality and augmented reality. Mixed reality tracks a space, a world space. Augmented reality tracks an image. Makes it a little bit simpler for us. Okay. So, the hardware requirements for an augmented reality app are a camera. So, the computer's going to have some sort of visual data that it can start to process. It's also going to need a screen to display that with its own overlays that it has. It's going to need sufficient processing power to go through all the images at high speed and be able to track images. And you're going to need at least one image to track. It's just not going to automatically just start working out of the box. It needs to know what it's doing. Fortunately for us, your smartphone does all this, and it can accomplish all of this. It's got a camera, it's got sufficient processing power, it's got a pretty decent screen, and if you need to take a picture, you can to get an image to track. In the last talk, I mentioned that while this is a minimum requirement, it is not the most optimal. While it will work for us today, one of the reasons augmented reality apps have not taken off, even though everyone has a phone in their pocket that can do this, is because augmented reality is very visual, and so it needs to be in front of your face. But phones were not designed to be right here. They're designed to be here. So that's one of the reasons that many companies are putting forth a lot of money to make those type of devices like Google Glass, HoloLens, Magic Leap. But for today, this is going to work great, and that's what we're going to use. And the software I'm going to be working in today is Unity3D, Vuforia, and I'm going to be using the Android SDK. Now, if you are an iPhone user, you can totally do the steps that we have today. There's going to be some slight changes. I just have a Windows machine and Android phones, so that's why I'm using those. But the steps I'm going to show you essentially will translate over to iOS as well. Unity3D is a 3D video game engine that's currently gaining a lot of steam in video games. That's how it started out. But what they're finding out, these researchers that are doing 3D graphic research, is that this thing's really, really customizable and very, very flexible. And because of that, they're starting to make these research libraries that can be plugged in right into Unity, and it's greatly improving their ability to allow people to visualize what their research is, and it's able to allow them to make applications on many, many good different platforms. So we're going to use that today. It's very powerful, and I'll talk a little bit more throughout the demo why it's such a good tool. Vuforia is the library we're going to be using. This thing is kind of packaged up all this augmented reality logic for us. It's being still heavily developed on. I believe Qualcomm was the one that started it, and it's kind of spun off to do its own thing. But it just recently released 6.1, which adds support for HoloLens. So it's still being actively developed, and I think they did a great job. And obviously, the Android SDK is widely available. So, can you all still hear me? Okay. Let's just close here. Okay. So to get this stuff, we're going to jump over to get Unity3D. Just type in Unity3D, and you can download for free. This thing is 100% free from the Community Edition. It really does not lose many features. And one of the cool things is if you do build something you want to try and sell it, they're not going to charge you for up to the first $100,000. So if you just want to see if your idea works, it's a pretty easy place to start, and I would recommend it. You can just go ahead and download it. You also want to sign up for an account. That is also free. And I have already downloaded and installed this to save us some time. Then you're going to want to jump over to Emporia. So with Emporia, again, it's just released 6.1. You're going to want to log in here. This is also a free account. And they have a free developer edition of their library, which is going to be sufficient for what we do today. The developer edition only has a limitation of how many features that you are tracking and using. Obviously, if you want to turn this into a full-fledged app, look at the pricing. I think it's pretty reasonable. To start off, when you first log into the developer portal, what you're going to want to do is you want to jump over to downloads. So the first thing to note here is that they've actually got this SDK for Android, iOS, and Windows Phone. So if you're not too big into this Unity3D and you just want to code it, you can download it, you can use it. But for our purposes today, they've actually got that Unity plugin that I'm going to use. So you would, if you're following along with me, you can download that package. Again, I've already done so. Just a quick side note, if you like this tutorial and you want to do more, they have a bunch of samples and a lot of tools, and it's pretty good developer support on this. So you are more than welcome to go even further. After you've gotten that downloaded, we're going to jump over to the develop page. And here, you're going to need to get a license key. Essentially, you click here, it'll ask you if you want to do a developer, consumer, enterprise. That's just, again, based on pricing. And you're going to get a key that looks like this. I'm just going to copy this, and you'll want to save this for later. But I'll show you where that gets pasted in. After that, you're going to go to your target manager, and this is the last thing we're going to have to do with Vuforia. So how Vuforia works is they creates a database of recognized images, and this just speeds up the process of their library, so it makes it a lot quicker for it to recognize images. And you can give it a number of different test targets. You could have 1, you could have 10. I do believe that there's a limit at one point, but I've not ever reached it. I've gone ahead and created a Vuforia test target database, and I've added in a couple of targets already. One of the neat things that Emporia does for you is it actually tells you how good these images are going to be to track. And I've talked extensively, like, the features matter. And to demonstrate that, here is a rug, just a standard old rug. And if Vuforia was trying, like, the camera was trying to figure out if this is the rug you're talking about, this is how it sees. You might have a little bit of trouble seeing it. It essentially says, I have 8 features up here. This is not good. In fact, it gives it a 0 star. I had not actually gotten a 0 star until I got this specific image. So this is not good. What we rather would see is something like this rug, who has a lot more features to be able to recognize this. So definitely play around with it. If you're using Vuforia, this makes it very, very easy. The clearer the image, so the higher the resolution of the image, the more features it's likely going to be able to see. But if you have something that's very, very basic, you're going to have a little bit of trouble. Case in point, I created an application years ago that looked at the number plates of different classrooms. Essentially, that doesn't have a lot of features on it, and it showed. It was very, very difficult for it to fully realize like what number plate I was looking at. So just keep that in mind. You want something with a lot more features than very little features. So after you've uploaded your images and it's all okay, you'll just download that database. And again, I've already done that.
I have a question.
Yes?
So if I'm looking for a good image, I mean, I can tell that, better rug is a lot more complex than rug. Is that essentially what you're looking for more features, like looking for a high level of complexity in the different shapes that are present in the image and that sort of thing? Like, how can I as a user look at this and go, this is probably going to be, it's going to be able to serve a lot of features for this or not?
Okay, so the question is how do we as the users determine what is going to be a good thing to track feature-wise? Okay, so generally speaking, good rule of thumb is the more complex the design or the more unique that is, the better it's going to be. Again, this thing has lots of flowers throughout. It's got lots of places that it's got lots of corners. And when I'm talking about a corner, I'm literally talking about a corner. If you go into computer vision research, that is one of the ways that it uses to determine images because it's very easy to process that. So this thing's actually kind of low resolution. So this thing would actually be better if it was a higher resolution because a lot of these corners start to get blurred. So I had another image that was, in my opinion, equally complex, but because it had such a low resolution, it ended up not viewing the features properly. So I mean, you can see that it still picked up a lot, but when those corners start to blur, it's hard for it to track. So you want clear, complex images. And things like Vuforia will help you determine what those good images are. All right, and the last thing is, in our case, we got the Android SDK, so you can just go to search for Android and download. Android Studio will give you like a GUI interface to be able to download the necessary libraries from there. If you have Mac, if you're using Apple, MacBooks, Xcode has the necessary libraries for that. I believe that comes packaged. All right, so we're going to jump over to Unity. I've downloaded and installed this, and this is what you're going to see when you come in. This is a vanilla install. I know a number of people, like sometimes when you follow tutorials, you don't necessarily know what their setup was before they did the tutorial. This is pretty much a clean install. The only difference that I did is I pointed it on my preferences to the Android SDK and update to Java. And I did that by coming over to File, or Edit, Preferences, and external tools, and there, this is where I just, that's all I changed. So if you install and update those Android SDK, they're in the same mode I am. And just so you know, this is how it starts. So to get started, you're going to want to come into the assets, and we're going to want to import that library, the Emporia library, and we're going to want to import our database. And you can do that by going to Assets, Import Package, and you can select, I've saved these things in my Documents folder, and then you just select both of those. I've already imported them for the sake of this example. If I was to open it, it's going to say, would you like to do that? I'm going to cancel it. Okay, so I've got those. They're going to show up right here in this folder, Vuforia. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to delete this main camera. If you build applications in Unity3D, this is the standard camera, but because we're building an augmented reality app, we want Vuforia's camera. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that and come down to the Prefabs folder in Vuforia. And you're going to see the augmented reality. The Prefabs, one of the ways that Unity works is they like to package objects together, and they call them prefabs or prefabrications, and it's a way that you can lump objects together. So in this case, I'm just going to literally drag and drop that camera. And I'm going to give it a rotation of 90 just to point it down, and I'm going to bring it up. And I'm going to zoom out so you can see what I just did there. So here's the camera pointing down. If you've got the camera selected over here on the left, you'll see in the inspector the app license key, and that's that key from Vuforia that we created earlier, and you just paste it in as it is. If you scroll down just a little bit further, there is a database load behavior script. Once you've brought in that database, you're going to have this check mark of this checkbox available. You'll click it and activate it, and the camera is done. That's it. At that point, what we can do is we bring in our image target. Drag, drop it in. It's now in the scene. There's the camera, there's the image target. And we're going to tell it in the image target behavior, just like our database. And then in our case, it just went ahead and picked the first one in the list, which was better run. And now it's got its image that it's looking for. The last thing we're going to need for our example is a 3D model. In our case, I'm going to go ahead and go to the asset store. Now this is one of the cool things about Unity. I talked about how if you are an individual that's really great at programming, but not so great at 3D models, you can actually go to this asset store, and there's lots of people that have uploaded stuff, sometimes for paying, sometimes for free, and you can just download their models. And if you're an individual who's really good at making your own models, but aren't so great at scripting, you can go here and buy scripts, like a 3D person camera. So this thing is one of the reasons that it's become so widely used, is because it's very easy for all people, no matter what, where you are, to make your own game. In this case, I didn't have time to put together a 3D model, so I'm going to search for a Christmas tree. And now we have our Christmas tree. So I'm going to select this, and if you've not logged in, they're going to ask you to log in, but again, that's a free. I've already logged in, so I'm just going to go ahead and import this. So what you'll see is now I have Christmas tree over here in my asset folder. I'm going to jump over to the prefabs, and I'm going to make this so it's a little bit easier to read. I'm going to select a small Christmas tree. And I'm going to drag, this is a key part here, dragging that Christmas tree onto the image target. The reason why that's important is that Unity likes to associate, again with the prefabs, it likes to associate objects together. So now logic for this image target is going to be applied to this tree. I'm going to make it a lot smaller. It's way too big in our case. Just going to drop that down. And now we have a nice little Christmas tree. And our scene is actually, believe it or not, done. That's all we have to do to get this thing to get started. And now we just have to deploy it. And we're going to do a little bit more after this, but to get this thing going, I'm going to jump over to saving the scene. I'm just going to do a test. Let's do Christmas. So now I've saved my scene. I'm going to come to File. All right, and at this point, I'm going to say add all my open scenes. So if you have like a environment where you're like, okay, I just want to have a testing scene, I don't want to actually build this out, you can uncheck that and compile this together. But if you look here, what you'll see is that there's a lot of things that Unity can build out to. It's got Xbox One, PlayStation 3, it's got WebGL, it's got Samsung TVs, Android, iOS. Again, one of the benefits of using Unity3D is you can deploy to lots of different places. And that's good because you can test certain things in many different types of environments. In our case, I could do the PC and Mac and Linux and use my camera, but I think it would be more fun if I just deploy this to Android, my Android phone that's sitting over here. So I'm going to switch the platform. Player settings. This is specific for Android. For those that have developed in Android, you know you have to kind of set this stuff up. All I'm changing is the bundle identifier. And that's how Android, for those that don't know, identifies different applications from one another. So I'm just going to give it its own unique name. We're going to do a build and run. The first build will take just a little bit longer after this, so it's going to be faster. But as you'll see, this thing is not going to be taking terribly long. Yes.
When you plug in your phone, does Unity3D just recognize it automatically, or do you have to search for it?
The question is when I plug in my phone, does Unity recognize automatically? It should be. That's one of the neat things. It does a really good job of just working seamlessly. If you work with Android before, it's actually, in my opinion, easier to work with than the standard Android Studio. I've never really had issues with it. So now that I've got this camera up here, I'm going to look for my image, and there you go. We got ourselves.
Yeah.
So, there you go. Now we got ourselves our first Android application. So I want to do one more step further to just kind of give you all an idea of like, this is not all that there is to it. This is not all there is to this. This is the most basic of basic examples. But let's say you're here and you're like, Daniel, that's great, but what if I wanted to do something? Well, in our case, this is kind of a boring Christmas tree. It's not really doing much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it spin on its own. And one way you can do that is by coming over here to selecting your Christmas tree and simply adding a component. In my case, I'm going to add a new script. One of the neat things about Unity is it's built on Mono. For those that are familiar with that, essentially what that means is you can write C# or JavaScript and it's going to compile down to the same thing. So if you're really interested in scripting, but you're like a JavaScript developer, you can use that. And if you're a .NET developer, you can use that language. And that's going to translate essentially the same way. For my case, I'm going to use C# because that's what I've been using recently. And I'm just going to create and add that. And at this point, I'm going to edit my scripts. And if you have, if you're doing a C#, actually I believe it doesn't matter whether it's C# or JavaScript. If you have Visual Studio, you can use this instead of your built-in Mono. They're built-in Mono. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to restart this guy. Okay. I'm gonna give it a second to come up. And this is going to be a very, very simple script. I'm not actually doing it. Yes.
Is there a reason why you decided to use Mono instead of Visual Studio as your development environment?
The only reason is that that's the first thing that came up. But more than welcome to use Visual Studio. I also find that Mono opens up a little quicker, and I thought that'd be a little bit easier from a demonstration perspective. So, I got my spinner class here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove the start. I'm going to give it, I want this thing to be something that I can control speed-wise. So I'm going to give it a public variable. One of the cool things about public variables is in Unity, they're exposed to your editor, so you can adjust it within the editor, and you don't have to necessarily keep going back and forth between your IDE. So now the speed will be exposed to to Unity. Now I'm going to tell it to do something. I'm going to use a built-in. Unity's got a lot of useful functions to manipulate 3D objects. If you've ever tried to do that manually, it can be kind of a bear. But fortunately for us, they've all handled that. So I'm just going to transform this into a rotate. So what I did here was, what this is saying is that I'm going to transform the object this is associated with on its axis, and I'm just going to rotate it over time based on the speed. So every change in milliseconds, it's going to slowly rotate this object. This is what it looks like. There's my speed. I'm going to put it at 10. And we're going to just rebuild this application.
Drum roll there.
Yeah. There we go. And it's spinning. So this is a very basic example, but as you can see, it was as simple as adding a component and then making manipulations as you want. And so there's a lot of things you can do with that. And I wanted to expose that simply because sometimes just displaying the model is not good enough. So with that, I want to just kind of wrap up this talk, and I want to allow you to keep in mind that unique images are going to be better to track. Better the camera, the better the data, but with that, you're probably going to have better processing power. Fortunately for us, as better cameras are coming out, they're getting better processors, so it's not really much of an issue. And augmented objects can interact with one another. That's why I showed off that script. There's another example I showed at previous talk where the individual had two different things that were recognized, and as they got closer together, they started interacting with one another. So that can be done. And the last part is mixed reality pushing this basic concept. Again, this was just an image getting tracked. However, mixed reality is going to try and track your room, build a world around room. That opens a lot of possibilities. With that said, augmented reality hasn't tapped out its possibilities either. So if you have a cool idea, get it out there. You might actually see it catch a lot of ground, because I believe this is going to be something that's going to be very big. Yes?
Have you tried using this with CB, the one that dynamically tracks objects using the Android already SDK, or so like if you were looking at a table, you don't necessarily get information until there's a table object and you distribute the table. Have you tried using that yet, or do you have to use a specific one for Unity?
Okay, so was that Tango you were referring to?
No, it's called VoFCD, VOFCD.
I have not used that, not yet. But what I do know, and I talked about this a little bit last time, Tango, Project Tango is meant to be like this, and it's actually got a plugin for Unity as well. That one's supposed to make what you're talking about very possible for a large range of people. With that said, Tango requires a special camera, so I'd have to take a look at what that exactly will comment on that. I do not know. I have no suggestion. So, is there any other questions? Yes.
This is kind of what you were saying, but is there a way with Emporia to track the Emporia Maker's objects, not just a picture, but like maybe give it a shape, like for a chair, for a clock, something like that?
So the question was, is there a way to get Vuforia to recognize other shapes? Is that correct?
Not just like.
So I did not show this, and shame on me. But if you are adding targets here, you can actually tell it to look for a 3D object. I personally have not used that yet, but I believe it would do something similar.
Yes, you can.
So,
See, you can add your own images into Vuforia.
Yes.
So if I wanted to draw a picture, I can add that in, then it's in the library.
absolutely.
sure it's looking for all the details on the flowers and that sort of thing.
I believe so. Again, I have not used this specific Vuforia, but my understanding is yes, it's happening. Yes.
When you originally set up your camera in Unity, you had it at 90 degrees facing completely down.
Yes.
Can you explain why? I mean, are you thinking that your example, you were going to hold the phone 90 degrees above, but what if somebody was literally playing a game and they're walking around with their phone?
See, that's a great question. So the question was, why did I put 90 degrees pointed down? In reality, with Vuforia, you can have it point anywhere. The camera just needs to be within the scene. The only reason I did it was I find it kind of easier to visualize. It's one of the reasons I like Unity3D is it allows you to visualize kind of like the scene that you're seeing. You don't actually have to have it. You could have left it at 0, 0 for all I cared. You could have multiple targets within the scene that wouldn't show up until you recognize those. But thank you for asking the question. Yeah, the 90 degrees was just simply for my benefit of saying this is how I'm visualizing this. Sometimes that can be difficult for someone who's just going through code as well, and that's one of the reasons why I like this as an example, because it allows you to visually see something if you don't understand the code behind it. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you all coming out. Hope to see you next week.